the number was 246. We bumped up just barely. But remember, fourth grade, the proficiency score is 249. So our kids haven't even reached proficiency yet. Okay, so now we look at the same thing, math. Oh, I'm sorry, this is their ranking from 2nd to 20th, from 92 to 2011. I'm sorry, I don't have the ranking for 2013. I don't think it shifted much. If it did, it went up a little bit. Okay, this is 8th grade math. Pretty flat line. 285. The I think for this one, the 8th grade is 299. Do I have that right? 299. We haven't reached that one yet. And this year, I'm sorry, the last time they gave it was 2013. If they gave it in 15, I don't have any results yet. It was 285. It stayed right exactly the same. Now, if you've never given the NAEP test, you not understand the nature of it. It is not like an ITBS or an I-10. It is short answer, fill in the blank, show your work, and it's language arts, math, and they have the science component now. And it takes a while to take it because kids have to show their work and write responses, and they hate it. I'm just going to be honest with you. My fourth graders didn't like it.
So who scores it then? Do you send it
People
back
from
in?
the national, yeah, they score
Send
it,
it back
and
in.
I don't have any idea of that process because, like I said, I never got any feedback from them. We don't know. It's like this mystery thing that pops up. But I'm just showing you, if you're looking at across the years, this is where we've been. This is where we are with 8th grade math. That one's probably the one that's kind of the scariest as far as where we rank. Again, if we change very little. Here's, this is kind of an interesting one. You don't have this one. This is how we compare to our neighbors on the NAEP. Anybody want to toss out why they think this happens?
Is that a typo? Missouri's ahead of us?
Yeah, okay. You have to remember I'm from southern Iowa.
Nah.
I was born and raised in Mount Pleasant, and we don't say Missouri. We say Missouri. And I don't want. Is anybody here from Missouri? Well, it's just this just never supposed to happen, you know.
That's what I
Probably because we haven't people moving like other states.
Did you hear her? She said perhaps it's because we haven't been teaching towards standards like other states have done.
teaching to the test.
Teaching to the test. NAEP is their data is taken off of standards. Yes, it is. They're supposed to be assessing those, I think, a little bit more closely.
The kind of crazy thing is we were higher before we taught to standards. We were scored like first.
It's our ranking that was higher, so what has happened is other states have
Yes.
improved, and we've stayed the
Well,
same.
some people from Missouri moved to Iowa.
Okay, here's another one. This shows you 20-year NAEP gains in 8th grade. This is for other states, so Judy, what you said, hit it right on. It isn't that we've gotten a whole lot worse, it's just that we haven't improved as other states have, or as rapidly.
Yeah, we're holding steady.
Right. Okay, so now this is the reading. This is 4th grade reading. If you look at that one, you'll notice that we are at 221. This year, at 2013, we're at 224. It bumped up just a little bit. The cut score for proficiency is 238. This is the ranking. Bumped up a little bit.
What does the N mean?
That means the number of states that took it. I think in the 52 means that Puerto Rico took it. I think it was Puerto. Maybe it is District of Columbia. I thought it was Puerto.
50 states and then Puerto Rico.
And then okay, thank you. Okay, this is 8th grade. The proficiency on that way up there is 281. And our ranking went down in 8th grade. Reading. All right, so now you get to see our neighbors with regards to reading.
But how many schools in each one of those states are actually being tested on?
I can't tell you that. I
Because that
really
would
don't
skew
know.
the data
I don't
greatly.
know. I don't know if it's an equal number of schools. I don't know if it's the same type of school. Let's see, my Karen Acres school, which was 40% ESL by the time I left there. 40%, folks, ESL. I had a lot of ESL teachers. That was drastically different than when I went to Webster, and I had maybe 12 ESL students. You see what I mean? Way different population. And that would also make a big deal. But I have no knowledge, I'm sorry, I wish I did, because that could attribute to some of this. You're exactly right.
Did Urbandale take the NAEP test? That you know of?
Yes, we took the NAEP test this last year, 2015. I don't know if they took it. I know they did it in 13, but I don't know about 15. Okay, so here we go, looking at the difference between ITBS and NAEP, and I think this is kind of interesting, because if you look at, we're showing on ITBS we're 82% proficient, but when you're looking at the NAEP in 4th grade, we're only 33. That's the difference in the test and the type of testing that it is. And like I said, I don't want to spend a lot of time with this, I just want you to see this stuff. This is the difference between who were proficient and who grew a year. You know, 91% of the kids showed up as proficient in 4th grade reading, but only 63% of them actually grew a year. There's a big difference. And we started the last year when I was principal, well, the last several years, instead of looking at where they were proficient or not, we started looking at growth. Because if you have a kid in 3rd grade who's way below proficiency, but goes to 4th grade and gains a year, but still isn't proficient, I think that should be celebrated. That, to me, shows growth. Where it gets bad, there's a bad side to that, those of you who would do numbers like this, it's when they're in 5th grade, and or let's say 4th grade, and they're already scoring at the 7th grade the 8th month, and they move to 5th grade, and then they do the 8th grade the 3rd month. You see what I mean? When they're at the top, it's much harder to move them a year, because they're already there. So, you know, data. Okay. So this is IEP, non-IEP, free and reduced, ELL, minority. This is not shocking anyone, I know. This is another basis for why we've gone to the standards that we've gone to. This is math. Okay, have you had enough data? This is science. I know I'm not showing you anything you don't already know. Okay, so now we're going to look at, okay, we got all these problems, what are we going to do about them? Well, I'm hopefully going to teach you a tool that might help a little bit with this. Do I think it's going to solve all of these problems that we have? Absolutely not. There's too many different social issues going on out there that I can't solve. If I'd solve them, I would write a book and go on a circuit and, you know, but I can't. But I can teach you how to use this tool, which I hope will help you. Again, we talked about what rigor is, and what happens though a lot of times is when you look at a standard and then you start writing your instructional activities, you start writing your assessments, you don't keep all that in line with each other. Now sometimes they're provided for you, and if we go to, went out of my mind, Smarter Balance, the Smarter Balance assessments, you've all heard about those, that's been recommended. Now that we won't take ITBS, we won't take ITES, we'll do Smarter Balance. They're supposed to align better with the standards. Be really honest with you, I've gone in and looked at Smarter Balance, I've looked at 4th and 8th grade, and I've looked at a little bit language arts and math. They look like they align, but I'm just not the guru on that. They're a different kind of test. They're not a fill-in-the-dot test. So just saying, if they come about those, hopefully they will line up a little bit better, because often they don't line up. What we're asking our kids, what we're asking you to teach kids, and what we're telling you to assess them with are not aligned with each other. And then sometimes when you have to create your own assessments, this is a way to help you look at the assessment that I'm creating, what am I doing? Is it aligning with what I'm supposed to be teaching them to do? All right, so a taxonomy is really just a table. That's all it is, and it's a revised Bloom's table. Bloom's originally started out, I think I told you before, it was actually created for the Army, believe it or not, back in the early 50s, I think, and it was to look at the types of questions they used on recruitment materials for the Army. It was strictly to look at questions like that. It wasn't to look at curriculum. It wasn't intended for schools at all. And what they found out over years of research was that learning is not necessarily linear. You don't always learn this, then this. You don't go that way. For example, sometimes you might have to analyze a piece of literature before you can really determine the tone. You don't always do things in a consecutive order, and kids don't always learn that way. You know, it isn't always we start with the fact and then we, you know, comprehend the fact and then we apply the fact. Sometimes yes, but not all of the time. Learning is not always linear. And over the years, the different verbs that they used on the Blooms kind of got mismatched. My favorite one is, you know, we usually think of creating as one of the most difficult and complex tasks that we ask kids to do is to create something. But if I create a list, You see, that's a misuse of that verb. You can't really put that over on the hierarchical end of learning if I'm just creating a list. So you kind of got to watch those verbs. And what they go back to is when you think about what you have your kids do, think about what you are actually wanting them to learn and to do. Not just the verbs that you use, but what they are doing. So the type of knowledge makes a difference. And there are 4 types of knowledge that we're going to look at. Anybody want to throw a guess out here? What kind of types of knowledge we might look at? What types of knowledge do you teach? Okay, I'm getting this look. Factual. You teach facts. You do teach facts. You have to. You can't do a lot of math if you don't know those fact things. What else do you teach?
Concepts.
Concepts, yes. I'll give you some examples of the concept later. There's another thing. If you're wanting kids to do something in a certain way, you teach them a procedure. And then the last one that we don't spend much time with, though, we've already talked about this, is the metacognitive piece, thinking about their own thinking. So now you look at the original Blooms and you look at the revised Blooms. I want you to look at it a minute and tell me what's different. Yeah, a lot of times you do. Evaluating a poem is a lot easier than creating a poem, usually. And did you notice they went from what to what? They went from nouns to verbs, because learning is an active process. Knowledge itself is not learning, it is the product of learning. So we are going into that active, the verb use, okay? So now probably what would help you is if on your tables, if you pulled out table number 1, it's the yellow one.